Hey yo, welcome to Parker's Reefs. On today's episode, we're going to check out the new filtration skid, or what I like to call a huge ass sump, at my friend's new store, Deer Park Aquarium. Alright guys, thank you for joining me on another episode of Parker's Reefs, and for those of you who watch week in, week out, will know that last weekend I went to my good friend Dave to the new store that he's been planning and scheming and building away at for some time now, and we did have a little sneak peek at the floor plan and some of the features that are going to make this new store just above and beyond where any of our imaginations are at this point in time. One of those key details was the sump that was already there in place that's going to take care of about a third of the marine side of the filtration of the new store. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot when you've got a freshwater store and a marine store, and then you take half of that store, then you only take a third of that to do the filtration. But let me tell you, this sump is absolute next level. It comes from a team called MAT Filtration, and it is so commercial, I just even struggle recognizing some of the parts of it. So once I saw it in person, and then also once I saw it fired up, I figured there was no way known I was not going to put a microphone on Dave and get him to take us through every single feature on that sump so we can have a good look at it, see how it works, and basically just be in awe of how cool of a filtration system this setup is, and just dream that we could have this at home. So without further ado, let's switch over to Dave now and have a look at this incredible sump, which was supplied by Fresh by Design here in Australia. Let's roll. All right, I am back here with Dave at the brand new Deer Park Aquarium store, where I had previously touched on when we did a tour of the progress of the fit out for the new shop, that he had this incredible new filtration or filter skid, or I don't know what you want to call a sump.
Life support system.
Frankenstein's monster, I'm not sure, but there's this incredible piece of machinery here in front of us, and I could not resist the opportunity to get just your take and overview of this system that's distributed in Australia from Fresh by Design, I believe.
Correct.
Which is up in New South Wales.
Yeah, just south of Sydney.
Cool. Tell us the specs, Dave. Tell me everything about this sump.
So this is the sump to run eventually about a third of our marines. Mm-hmm. We plan on putting a second one in for the other third, and the other third will just be individual systems.
Wow.
But basically, it's a lot more than we need. We're running nearly 2 horsepower of return pumps.
Wow.
This pump here basically just returns. So it has a inlet strainer on the bottom that self-cleans the base of the sump, so we don't have to get in there with hoses and clean it out.
Yes.
And it just feeds the tanks. That's the
so
only
that one just
only
takes the water from the sump and puts it back to the tanks.
It's about 22,000 litres an hour.
Yep.
So it packs an absolute punch. Basically, the water will return from the tanks into a pre-filter here, although I do plan on putting another pre-filter in front.
Okay, yep.
But for now, it goes into a little pre-filter. It's sponge driven.
Yes.
And it recirculates through the sump. It gets picked up by another strainer, which self-cleans the bottom of the sump as well, and gets pulled into this pump here, which feeds all the equipment.
Nice. Now these are a Waterco pump, Australian designed.
Yep, 240 volt. 12 meters of head. You got 2.5 amps on one, 3.5 on the other, so they need their own dedicated circuit.
Yeah, wow. Put a little bit of amperage.
We're pumping into a K1 media reactor. So it has K1 and C1 in there. So that's basically really effective at removing ammonia from the system. It's not really good at nitrate removal, but we're not worried about that. We do water changes to cover that side of things.
K1 media is something that we see like in commercial fisheries quite often. It's that, I'll put some footage on screen now
plastic
of that.
beads.
Yeah, they're sort of a plastic patterned bead that they pretty viciously tumble. And how does that work?
So the idea is the tumbling encourages the old bacteria to be broken off and blown through the water column, allowing new bacteria to constantly grow, and it's that new bacteria that focuses on the ammonia removal.
Okay, right, yeah. And obviously, I mean, there's a big skimmer built into this sump, but the K1 media is probably one of the main components of it here, and it's, as far as I've had a quick look at this sump, it's actually that tumbling is fed from a few different mechanisms on this setup.
So we have the main pump in, which is at about the 2,000 litres an hour when it's set optimally.
And
Then
that pumps down into the bottom?
pumps into the bottom to create a swirling motion.
Oh, okay, yep.
There's also 12,000 litres an hour of air being pumped into a diffusion plate at the bottom of it.
Okay, just stop it sort of settling down there.
And then the skimmer also returns through here as well.
Through there. Yeah, right. So there's
which
all
is going
sorts
to also help get rid of ozone when we run ozone later on.
Okay, a little sneak peek as to what else is coming. Incredible. So we've got the K1, which is fed from basically three sources of water and air to keep a pretty vicious little tumble there. And we will fire this sump up a little bit later with just a little bit of water we got in there on a closed loop at the moment, just so you can see it in action. But apart from the K1, what else is in there, Dave?
So the K1 goes into some filter socks, and there is a reactor here. We will be removing those and just doing my own little thing in there. I'll put a couple of bigger reactors and some porcelain media and things in there.
Okay.
And then there's a bypass.
I do love the way that all of this is, I love just how industrial it is. These are basically nylon bolts there's the overflow plate, there's the filter sock holder, there's there's nylon screws for the carbon reactor. It's like Lego, it just unbolts and you've got that space to work with.
Designed to be forklift in place at a zoo or an aquarium, connected up and left
off
to
you
run.
go. Yeah, crazy. This model, I think when you were looking at ordering it, it's rated to
This
normally
is the
when you
baby
talk
model.
filtration, you talk how many litres that it's suitable for. These guys don't mess around with that. They talk about how many grams or kilograms of food.
Kilograms of food it can process in 24 hours.
And I hesitate to ask, how many kilograms or grams does it process?
About 50 times more than we need it to.
Well, I've seen you feed the fish, so that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. And then lucky last, we've got the protein skimmer itself.
Yeah, yep.
So I haven't measured it yet, but I'm going to say it's probably about 4 foot tall.
Yep.
It looks to be 12, maybe 14 inches round.
Yeah, it's got a pretty decent diameter to it. It's a big bit of kit there. And then, well, one thing, I mean, it goes to the skimmer as well. We can see these flow pieces there, and they've got them throughout. So we've got one over here to the K1.
Each piece of equipment has the flow meter on there.
Yep.
And numerous taps to control every little aspect of it.
Yeah, good industrial taps. So you've got flow meters, you've got taps. You've even got pressure gauges for like inlets and outlets on each of the pumps there, so you can make sure that their little pre-filter baskets aren't clogged, or the pumps just, doesn't have something stuck in the impeller or whatever. You can keep an eye on, make sure that's all around the right mark. And then you've even got on things like, because this is a Beckett-driven skimmer, is that correct? Or an air-driven skimmer at least? Like it
doesn't have a Beckett in it. It's got a Venturi. It's Venturi-driven.
Okay. Yeah. But it's got a separate air intake, and even that has a flow meter on it there.
So this little section here has a tapered outlet which forces the water like a jet.
Yes.
And that in turn sucks the air in and mixes the air that way. So it works very, very similar to a Beckett.
I was going to say that, in my definition, that's a Beckett, but...
it's laid out as a Venturi though, so although it's got the tapered hole, it hasn't got the extra holes at the back of it.
Okay. Either way. It works in a similar way.
It works in a similar fashion.
And you've got a couple of intakes here. So this is the air intake here.
This is our air intake, and we've got our gauge here of where we want our air to be.
When that starts sucking, it'll actually bring it up, and we want to dial that in to be, in the long term, somewhere in the middle of those two there, or you can adjust those.
This one is for our ozone injection. We're going to be injecting 0.5 gram to 1 gram of ozone an hour into this thing.
Damn.
That coupled with a soon-to-be 150 watt UV sterilizer, commercial UV sterilizer. So we're going to have, with our flow rate dialed in, we're going to have around 300 micromoles of radiation.
Okay, great.
Which is about 10 times more than you need. And the ozone's probably twice what you need as well. So it hasn't been fully tested, but technically nothing living should ever be able to exit this sump. We could have every problem known to man in there, and it's not getting out and into the tanks.
See, that's great.
This tap here is just to drain the skimmer if you ever need to move it.
Yep.
This is our inlet back in. I've just got it blocked at the moment because we are going to cycle this sump ready to go. So when the tanks are here, all the bacteria is good to go.
Sump sitting in place, and if you need to move it, you can, but while it's sitting there and you've got power to it, you might as well put some water in it and get
some bacteria
broken in.
There. And, This one here is our drain, which is both the emergency overflow to the sump and the drain from the skimmer itself.
Okay, so quite clever. So it's got some overflows built into it should something go wrong.
Yep.
And the water starts rising, you can actually have that
It'll
plumbed
automatically
up
be plumbed up into the drain.
into a drain. So rather than ending up on your floor, it ends up in the drain, and we might be able to put some sort of automation on there to signify that water has gone through there.
Yep. Then we have our skimmer cleaning section. So we've basically got our main neck cleaner and then our head cleaner, and they're sprinkler driven within the skimmer cup itself.
Yeah, crazy. Just to make that as automated as possible. And I know we're already looking at options to put some motors on these ball valves there, so we can set that off for a couple times a day or whatever it is, just
Automate
to automate that. And that actually runs off salt water as well, so it grabs the water from the sump to do that, so not a separate
So essentially it's an automatic water change through the process of cleaning your protein skimmer.
Yep. And that skimmer obviously, that overflow down there, the skimmer connects into that too, does it? So the drain of the skimmer comes out there? Or?
So the skimmer drains through a bulkhead here, and then there's a bit of plumbing here with an overflow that both connect down into this one tap at the bottom.
Yeah, right. Awesome, awesome. Well, that's a fair old bit of machinery there. It's a big step up from the the small little sort of 4-footer skimmers that you had on each system at the current shop. I'm dying to hear this thing run. I've seen this, I saw this come, well, I technically wasn't here when it got delivered, but I did see it a couple of days after delivery, sitting there dry, and you've told me that you've put roughly how many litres of water have you put in it?
It's got 300 in there. It needs probably another 50 to be in its sweet spot, but
We've got enough water in there, so it's
enough
not
to
drawing air. Fire it up, Dave. Show us what this piece does.
This is just the return pump. At the moment, I've got the bypass open. So we're currently bypassing here and then also into the main inlet.
Lovely. So yeah, this is the main inlet here where water comes in. Well, in this instance, normally that would be the return there, so that's normally going back out, and normally the inlet would come in via down here, but we've just circled or closed looped that back in there, and you can see the water just making its way through the sump there.
That way I can get some bacteria in here, give it 3-4 weeks worth of running, and we don't have to worry too much about ammonia when we transfer all the
kickstart
fish.
things a little bit, yeah.
Then we got the skimmer and accessories pump. You'll see now that the float valves have all
moved up. Yeah, look at them. They're very responsive. It's amazing how it's such a fine turn of the ball valve makes that change.
We'll also eventually put in some water level sensors and things here just to make sure that it's running right, automatic top off, that sort of deal.
It's quite ingenious over here where we've got, let's see if I can get an angle of it. Just in here we've got this little sight glass with this clear tube here, which basically gives you the indication of the water height. And they've got these nice little T's with some glands here that allow you to put some sensors in there so you can keep an eye on the height of the sump at any sort of given time, whether you're here or not, which is pretty cool.
We've got a bit of a sight glass here on the skimmer, so if we can't see the water level, we can still tell where the water level is in the body of the skimmer. And another sensor probe here, so that if the water level is too high, we can then send a notification or turn a pump off.
I'm just looking at the amount of water coming out of the K1 reactor.
Yep.
And it's got this very nice little divider plate here, just to send it off to the 3 filter socks there. Super, super cool. With the K1 media in there.
We haven't got the air turned on at the moment.
So I've got the air turned on, so it's not doing its full circulation in there, but that won't be long. I see all sorts of other big air pump down here and some filter sponges for the other systems when they're going.
You've got your main skimmer feed. So you can control the height of the skimmer here, so we're overflowing a little bit there. It's a bit hard to tell, but I can dial that down a little bit just to change the water level height.
Crazy.
And then that also has the air adjustment here. I'll leave that fully open for as more finer a bubble.
It's like the skimmer at home.
Self-cleaning skimmer head.
Awesome.
So run that for 5-10 minutes a couple of times a day. We'll automate that with some
motors.
Some motors. And you've got the main neck skimmer, neck cleaner there as well.
Yes, it's got 2 different types of cleaners. You've got one that actually cleans the inside of the neck, and then you've got these ones on the outside which just clean the cup. so that you got both the inside the neck and outside the neck cleaned up as many times a day as you want.
And all of that, along with the skimmate, just drains through a bulkhead in the bottom of the cup here, and again, just outside of this pipe here. For now, it just returns through the emergency overflow back into the sump.
What an epic bit of gear you got there, Dave. You've got to be pretty pleased. I know these sort of things aren't super cheap, but I mean, in comparison to buying individual components,
Exactly.
it actually makes a lot of financial sense. And to get something this high quality, it's industrial grade, and it's still in a pretty small footprint when you think of how much it does.
It looks tiny here compared to the other shop. But yeah, it's very compact. It's going to do a lot of work, take up little to no room. And once we add an oxygen generator, an air dryer, ozone and UV to it, it's going to look even crazier again. Even crazier and just be even more over the top, which anyone who's seen my Dream Reef tank knows I love over the top. And I know you've had that much involvement in the Dream Reef tank. I know how much you love over the top too. So it's pretty cool to see the shop equivalent of that coming to life, which is awesome. And I love the idea that this is going to be in a filtration room right next to the cabinet here. It's got its own room. We'll have some display tanks at the front and a little viewing window so people can pop their head in and people will be able to have a little bit of a look as they're making their way in the shop to head towards the wet room up there. They'll be able to walk past and see the skimmer and sump in action, and probably even be able to see the glow of the UV out the end there, which would be pretty cool. Super awesome. Amazing stuff, Dave. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, there you have it. That is the tour of the MAT Filtration filter skid, which was supplied by Fresh by Design in Australia, right here at the brand new Deer Park Aquarium store. Huge shout out to Dave for making it possible for us to both have a look at this system, but also film him and get him to take us through all of those crazy features of such a high-end commercial sump. Truly a pleasure to be able to see it. And the other thing that was super, super cool is the plans that once that filtration room gets built, it's going to have a little window for all customers that come in store to be able to see that beautiful piece of art working away there, pulling out all of those 5 kilograms of food per 24 hours, which is just mind-blowing. I cannot wait to see what it's going to do once there's some bioload in there, not just circulating with some biomedia and a bit of bacteria in there, but once there's some actual fish load on the system and Dave can start pushing maybe 1 or 2 kilos of that fish food per day through the system. I just cannot wait to see the gunk that it pulls out, and also just things like the ozone going onto it and the UV is going to be an absolute beast of a system. Now you can see that Dave has had that filtration in mind for quite some time. Believe it or not, he was actually looking for one twice the size, but has decided to go a little bit smaller at first and then add a second one the same size. Yes, that is the small setup, believe it or not, in due course down the track. But I don't know about you, I can't personally imagine feeding more than 5 kilograms of food a day. Most people are talking 1 or 2 cubes of food a day, weighing just a measly few grams. So super, super high-end gear. I'm really appreciative of being able to see that and get the tour from Dave. So once again, thank you. I don't think I have really anything else to add other than if you've got any questions for Dave about this new filtration setup or his new store, feel free to pop it in the comment section down below. And of course, as you've now realized, this is really probably part 2 of the tour and introduction of what's gone into Dave building his brand new local fish store. If there is anything else at all you would like to see some detail on and have some videos produced on, please do not be shy. Pop it in the comment section down below. I read each and every comment down there, so it is the best way to get hold of me. Any ideas you've got, I'll take them to Dave and say, so what do you think, mate? You reckon we can mic you up and get us to take us through this sort of question here? So please, don't be shy with your questions. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, stay safe and keep reefing. Cheers, bye.